Hello, welcome to the second episode of Creating Strava for Coding. For those who don't know, Strava is a fitness app that lets you track and analyze your workouts and then gives you a shareable result. Also builds a community around it. I wanted to do the same for coding, so I'm creating a platform that lets you track your coding sessions, gives you analysis, gives you shareable results, and later we can implement the community aspect to it. So if you want to see the first episode, the link would be in the description. But in conclusion, in the previous episode, I decided to create a VS Code extension to start with because a lot of the people I code with use VS Code as a coding platform. So I thought making an extension for VS Code would be a good idea to track your progress. Also, it is very easy to create a VS Code extension using the VS Code API. So what that extension is doing, each time you start a coding session, it is spawning a child process that is using a Python file, and that Python file is used to track all of your coding activity during that session. And since it is a different process, then you can track your coding session along different files, different modules, different tabs, and even different VS Code windows. And right now, if I use the extension, I can have a start session command that will start my coding session. And now I can do my work. And when I stop the session using the stop session command, you can see the session ends. All the track data is being stored in a log.csv. Now on the session stop command, it will give you a very basic summary for now. For example, the session time, which is given in milliseconds, and I can change it into a readable format. Then the number of words you have typed, the number of lines you have typed, the number of characters you have used, the number of letters you have typed, the number of numbers, backspaces, spaces, enters, tabs, semicolons for the programmers, parenthesis pair, and file used count, which I don't think is working correctly. Yeah, this is the progress for now. So the main tracking part is work. Now what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a shareable result out of these analysis and create kind of analysis image that could be shared to other social media platforms. But I was not able to do that because I'm creating a web view in my VS Code extension to display these sessions, and the web view uses HTML to render different components into it. But the way the HTML is rendered in a normal browser and the way it is rendered in this extension was a bit different, and that was giving me a bit of hiccups. So I scratched that idea. But yesterday I was researching around the same thing, trying to figure out how to create a shareable analysis. And after some tweaks, now what I can do is I can render a canvas in my extensions web view, and then I can position all the text and all the graphics inside that canvas, and then using JavaScript you can easily take a screenshot of that canvas and that file would be saved, and then later you can share the image wherever you want. So for example, each time I end my session, I'll get this session summary web view, and here I'm using canvas to render these temporary text and basically a shape, but I also have a button below. This is called the save button, and very easily using JavaScript you can take a screenshot of your canvas element. Like if I do save, then I can save like image, name it anything, and then save it on my PC. And then if I go to my downloads, you can see the canvas image has been saved. So same way I have to complete that web view design and the code to render that design into the web view, polish bit of the tracking part so that it gives you the right analysis. And yeah, that would be it for today. So today's task is to complete the extension MVP. I just created a Figma design of what I want a basic analysis window to look like in my extension, which is heavily inspired from a GitHub README stats generator by Josh XFI. And now I can use Duolite, which is a Figma plugin that also sponsored one of my Instagram reels. So what this plugin does is it generates an HTML or a React code of your Figma designs very easily. And as you can see, I got the code for my design, which I just created on Figma with a single click. Now I can just copy paste this code, which Duolite has generated for me, into my extension window. And let's see how it looks in our web view. And now if I add this AI generated code on my extension script and then run the extension, a very well designed summary of your code is visible through the extension. So I was looking at different ideas that could be added into the final analysis after the session ends. So there can be thousands of things that could be tracked and analyzed throughout the session. But out of those, what are the most important ones that I'm having a bit of difficulty figuring out? Also, I have 2 classes right now. I'll go take up my classes, and that's it. I'll see you after my classes. I'm done with my classes and I wanted to vlog in public. I was like, let's just do it. Who cares? I did. Also, I got this package from Amazon. It's a big ass package. I don't know what this is. So I'll just unbox it right now. Alright, so back to work. So I've thought of 2-3 to-dos that I can do right now. The first one is the design that I took inspiration for the final summary of the session has a section where you can see which all languages you have worked on and how much you have worked on which language. It is similar to what you can see in a GitHub repository. It shows you like 96% JavaScript or 10% CSS, something like that. So I can achieve that because while the session is being tracked, the name of the window in which you are working on currently is also logged into the log.csv. And in that window name, there's your file name available. And using that file name, I can extract the extension. And according to the extension, I can calculate how much you have worked in a particular language. So that way you can create the languages used and languages worked on section. Also in the last clip, as I was using the extension, you could see that it is showing that you can see that the file used counter is not working properly. It is showing like 10-20 files used when you have just used 2 files. So there are 2 main reasons for that. The first one is I've coded it in such a way that when you switch files, then the counter increases. But the flaw with this approach is, suppose I'm working with file A and then I switch to file B and then back to file A, then it is counted as 3 files. So that's some very lazy and poor quality of code that I've written. Instead of that, I would just create a hash map that will keep in track of all the files you have used, and then this problem won't arise. The second reason why the file count is so high is because of VS Code only. You must have seen while you have worked in any VS Code file, if the file is not saved or there are some unsaved changes in the file, then and the dot appears before the name of the file in that VS Code tab. And when you save that file and there are no unsaved changes, then that dot disappears. So my tracker is detecting these 2 files as 2 different files. At the start, when you're working on a fresh file, then it just shows that file name dot extension. But as soon as you start working on it, a dot appears and the algorithm is triggered that now the screen has been switched. And each time you save the file, again it is triggered that the screen has been switched, and so the file count is coming out to be. So these 2 things can be worked on. Apart from these 2, I've also thought about a streaks feature, but I'll work on that after these 2 are finished. Alright, so finished 2 of the tasks. The first one is according to the file extension of the current file that we are editing, I have included a new field in the log.csv, which is corresponding to the extension of the file that we have just edited. If you are working on a .java file, then the CSV will store a Java format. If you're working on a .py file, it will store the Python format. And if we are working on a .txt file, it will store it as a text file. Also earlier, the log.csv was saving the files in 2 different formats. A simple format for the saved file and a format with this dot for the unsaved file. To solve this, I'm just removing the dot from all the file names that contains a dot. So now, irrespective of whether you have saved the changes to your file or not, it will be stored as the same name, so it won't be detected as 2 different files while parsing the CSV. Also created a Trello board to keep in track of different features and bugs that I need to add, and also some future updates that I could add and that I need to research more about. Alright, going for my badminton team practice. We have 2 tournaments lined up in a month, in a week, and in 2 weeks time. So it's around 10 o'clock and I'm done with my practice, with my dinner and everything. And I have not more than 2 hours left before I go to sleep, because tomorrow we have an 8 AM class, 8 AM extra class of embedded systems. So I'm not taking any chances and I'll go to sleep at 12. Like, I've basically coded the feature in which you can figure out which language you are working on according to the file extension. Now what I need to do is, what I'm thinking of, suppose there are like 20 actions committed and out of those 10 are of Python. So I can say that 50% of the work is done in Python, something like that. So that metrics I have to create. For that, I'll be using a hash map probably. When all of the metrics are there, we have to display that on our final analysis dynamically. So that would be the goal to finish before I go to sleep. And I'll get to work. Alright, so running a bit late on our schedule, but the feature that I wanted to implement, that is, according to your session, it will tell how much you have worked on which language. So that part is working dynamically according to the log.csv file. And also the design of the final session stats window might look a bit different because I scrapped basically all the AI generated code and rewrote the whole HTML and CSS. Why? Because first of all, it was way too hard to edit an AI written code, and to change one thing disturbs a lot of other things, so I couldn't do that. Second thing, I wanted to remove the streaks feature because I've not yet implemented the streaks feature right now, but all the other things that are available in the final window is there implemented. Alright, so that was it for today. So we are almost done in completing the basic extension, and almost all of the features are being implemented. The last thing that is left is to add an authentication system and also to connect the extension to a database, so streaks can be stored, users can be stored, and basically data can be stored. And later I'm thinking of creating an app that could be connected through the database, so that way the app will be linked with that extension and then extension will be linked with that app, and both of them would be linked to the database.